Hi everyone, Trevor here. I'm going to go over how to set up Envisionware e-commerce services version 3.7 on server 2016. This software is mostly used in government type organizations such as libraries, cities, other kind of organizations where they need to tie into some sort of CRM or ILS. So a couple things that I have prepped beforehand to make this install go faster. I have a copy of the SSL certificates I'm going to use. I have a copy of the IIS extensions that are required to make this work. I have the Envisionware 3.7 server software. And I have Sublime Text Edit and PowerShell as well, which we're going to install on the server. Also, to make life easier, I've already determined what name I'm going to use for the server so that I can edit the local host file for testing to ensure the SSL certificate is working properly. So one thing I want to note here is that I have a copy of the Envisionware 3.7 Administrator Manual for doing the install, and it is extremely dated, and if you follow this procedure, at least the number of times I've tried to use it, it doesn't work. It's specifically configured for IIS 7, and it doesn't go over any of the updates that are required for getting the plugins for IIS that are required for this. And since Server 2016 uses IIS 10, that's a problem. So without further ado, since this is a clean install of Server 2016, we're going to go ahead and add the features we require, which is IIS. Here, I'm going to want to customize what I have for IIS. I need the hostable core. Okay, so according to Envisionware, we need static contact default document. So we'll just put this into window mode. Make this a lot bigger. Okay, so we got static content, HTTP errors, directory browsing, default document, static content. We need HTTP logging, which we have, and we need request monitor. And we need the IIS API filters. Okay, so let's go ahead and install this. Okay, so we have finished our installation. Let's rename the computer. It'll be renamed to EWECOM after restarting. And let's install the next items on here, which are application request routing and application rewrite. Okay, now after all that, we need to restart. And then once we come back up, we'll continue on. Okay, we've finished rebooting, logging in. Okay, so I'm going to pin Chrome to my taskbar along with the text editor and the IIS manager. So right now we should have a web page. We have to enable and configure application request cache and our URL rewrite. But let's just see. Is IIS working? Chrome says yes. Okay, so let's install our Envisionware software. So I want server components and the web module. This is just for the e-commerce. This is so people can use the online payment module for paying things with the credit card over the browser. I'm going to select Monares for my payment processor because that's what it is. So now the installer is going to run through a bunch of times and install a couple things. This runs off Apache Tomcat. So there's a bunch of stuff that's going to be installed, and we'll just have to wait till it's done. Okay, we're notified that they've allowed Envisionware access to the firewall so people can access the web application. We're going to install the web module now. So we're going to set the e-commerce server to the local host and the default e-commerce server port. Now you'll notice here there's no license here. I actually have the license right here pre-downloaded. So you can either log in and download it, or you can copy it there yourself. It just goes into the root directory of the Envisionware folder where the software is located. Then after that, we're going to set up the application request routing for IIS, so it moves over to the Apache Tomcat setup. And to do that, we're going to have to reboot first. Okay, logging in. There we are. So we have our Envisionware service up and running. So now we need to configure IIS. So I'm just going to move this over. Okay, so we need to go into our application request routing, cache configuration. Make sure that's all enabled. Server proxy settings we need to enable. And the settings should be pass through, timeout 120, X forward 4, 60 for the cache duration. Basically everything can be kept at default, and hit apply. Now from there, we want to go to our sites, our default site. We want to generate a rewrite rule. So we want to add a rule, blank rule for inbound. We want to match the pattern, use regular expressions. We want to do a caret. E-commerce web module dot asterisk bracket. And then for the rewrite URL, HTTP localhost e-commerce web module r:1. Apply query string and stop subsequent rules. Should be enabled. Then we hit apply. And now when we go to just localhost, we get an error, bad gateway. So we'll restart IIS. And it's still not behaving itself. You may need to force refresh or wait for the cache to clear. If in doubt, reboot. But the URL rewrite that you have to put there is the localhost 3000 because of Tomcat. And what that'll do is it removes the port 3000 and just does the localhost / e-commerce. And we'll set up a redirect for just localhost to go to the localhost e-commerce web module so that people don't come to the index of the IIS server. So now here's where we add the SSL certificate. So I'm going to bring up, I want to manage the computer certificates. So I'm going to add to the trusted root. I'm going to select the IIS server, cert. I want to go to the web hosting cert. Okay. And then here in I'm going to add the cert, set it for web hosting. Now if I go to the IIS folder, there's nothing there. We'll need to use the Tomcat. And then we'll reboot the server. Oh, and we need to add the bindings. So before we reboot the server, we're going to go to bindings. We're going to add HTTPS. And we're going to select our certificate. And now we're going to restart the server. So obviously going HTTP localhost, we're going to get an error. So we told the certificate's not valid, but it does work. So what I'm going to do now is close that. I'm going to edit the host file. So we can verify that the cert is working. Now I'm going to get the computer name. .48.15. The computer name is EWEcom. Save that. So now if we go on here, voila. We have everything set up and the connection is secured. And now if you have your Envisionware files, like I have here, you can just copy and replace them. So the ones we want to replace, the e-commerce server and the web. Now, for this part here, you should reboot. Okay, the system's rebooted. We're back up. Let's log in. Okay, so I'm going to put in my library card number. It may take a few minutes for the server to sort itself out. So let me just look up the barcode here. Okay, fill this in, put in the PIN, submit, and it says invalid login, so I might have put something in improper, so let's try that again. Put in the PIN. Now, it may not be liking our localhost translation, so we'll just do it right from the localhost, just to make sure everything is up and working. If there's some sort of DNS resolution error, we'll get that sorted out after. So let's put in the barcode and PIN. Give it a minute. Or two. Obviously, I'll have to give this machine some more resources. Try this one more time. There we go. And now we're finally through. So I'll give this machine some more RAM, some more processing resources. That should help it. And yeah, that's how you set up the Envisionware e-commerce platform. So I will have a more detailed write-up of this
set up the Envisionware
on
e-commerce
my
server
blog,
service.
optionkey.blogspot.com, where I'll also have
Don't
the
forget to like and
information for filling out the payment information through the Envisionware XML files. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe.